welcome everybody. It's our latest edition of Kissing the Cod. And we're here at PDAC, final day at PDAC, so there's a bit of background noise. Hopefully it's not too bad, but I want to welcome Mark Scott, joining us today from Gander Gold, G-A-N-D. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Janet. Great to be here.
You're my first in-person interview, so it feels kind of weird not seeing you in a box.
That's right, yes. We've all been living on video conference for far too long. It's good to be here in person.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Well, I just maybe jump in. Tell us a bit about you.
Sure. I grew up in a mining household in Bathurst, New Brunswick. My father spent most of his career working at the Brunswick mine and later Heath Steel mines in the Miramichi in Bathurst and the Miramichi, New Brunswick. And I started as an 18-year-old summer student operating equipment underground at Heath Steel and got a chance to split a couple of other summers doing exploration work and restaking old claims and carrying around soil samples and working with some material handling maintenance crews at the Brunswick mine. So had a great summer student experience and really fell in love with the industry and the people in it and decided that's the business I wanted to work in and not go the law school route like I thought I was going to go when I started university.
Good call.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
call.
I think it's been a good one so far. And that was quite a while. That was 1996 would have been my first year working in the industry, and I've been in it ever since. Lived all over. Once I finished school, I went to work for Inco in Sudbury for a couple of years, and then moved to Thompson, Manitoba, and lived there thinking I was going there for 3 years. Ended up being there for about 16. And in 2018, after a number of different roles and responsibilities with Inco and then later Vale and Thompson, left there and we started up Sassy Resources in 2019, which went public in 2020, and then spun out Gander in 2021 with its 8 projects in Newfoundland, which is why you and I are here chatting this morning. So it's a bit of a long and winding road, but it sure has been a quick, I don't know what that makes it, 26 years or so. It's been a quick feeling 26 years.
And you were gracious enough to let me in your placement.
Yeah.
It was
come
full.
one, come all, yeah.
It was
yeah.
full.
It was, yeah.
But you were kind enough to let me in. So where do you live now?
I live in Calgary, Airdrie, Alberta, just north of Calgary now. It's an easy, quote-unquote, easy commute to our projects in Northwest BC and Northern Saskatchewan with Sassy Resources, and a good airport that makes it easy to commute to Vancouver and Toronto and Deer Lake or Gander as required.
And do you still have family in New Brunswick?
Yep. Most of my family still live in New Brunswick. They've sort of migrated from the Bathurst area down to more around the Fredericton area these days. But yep, my brother and my folks and all my extended family still live in that area.
Nice. And at one point you were the head of mining in Manitoba?
It was Manitoba Operations for Vale, VP of Vale Canada. So in that role, in that capacity, I was managing the 3 underground mines in Thompson, 3 underground nickel, copper, cobalt mines in Thompson, along with the mill smelter refinery and all the associated infrastructure and exploration that went along with that. That business unit, we had just shy of about 2,000 employees full-time, including contractors, and give or take, be a little higher given what the nickel prices are right now, but give or take about $1 billion a year in revenue.
So that's a huge shift from that participation in production and big mines to starting a junior company.
It is. I think it's there are a couple of notable things about that. One is just the size and the agility and the ability to make decisions quickly. In an organization that has less than a handful of full-time employees versus one that I was working in before that had 165,000 full-time employees in, I don't even remember, dozens of countries speaking 14 different languages, right? You can imagine the difficulty of sort of getting agile, timely decisions made in that kind of an environment. So that's one of the big differences between that environment and a small junior is it's a small team and we're quick on our feet, which is really refreshing. It's really nice, I have to say. The other big difference is it can be at times a bit of a stretch to even call it the same industry, right? There's so much of the junior world is about raising capital and minding the treasury. It's not, you don't have month to month, quarter to quarter cash flows to support your capital needs. You have to be out there pounding the pavement and bringing it into the treasury on your own. So it's, that occupies a lot of time and energy, obviously, along with the promotion of the projects and the work that we're doing. I would call that about half of the business, and the other half is the technical work of actually trying to generate discoveries and acquire and develop good properties. So yeah, it's a different business, but it's a lot of fun and pretty rewarding because of how directly you're involved with all the different aspects of the work that go on.
And what is it that drew you to Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, we were SASY was looking for a second project to be that we could explore year round to complement the summer season in the SK camp where we have the Formore project. And we got into discussions with Vulcan Minerals in Newfoundland, Patrick Laracy, their CEO. And we acquired first sort of a smallish package of properties from Vulcan. And then we got into business with Sean Ryan, famed prospector Sean Ryan, who anybody who's familiar with the Newfoundland story now in 2022 probably knows about. But Sean and I got to know one another and sort of became fast friends, and he and Kathy and I became business partners, and we acquired a number of, or optioned, I guess, a number of properties from Sean, and the scale of the properties we ended up with within SASY was such that they really had taken on a life of their own. It was no longer sort of a second fiddle, second billing project for SASY, but really warranted being a company of its own. So we made the decision then to spin it out onto its own, and that's what's become Gander Gold. So we ended up with, in total, 8 different project areas in Newfoundland within Gander Gold. That's made up of some 9,052 claims, which I think makes it the single biggest claim position on the island, and without any sharing of portions of it. And that's 2,263 square kilometers of ground. So lots of ground to cover. It's all very early stage work that we're doing, and thankfully Sean and Kathy also have Ground Truth Exploration at our disposal, and their president Isaac Fage, who has been a real gift to several of the companies working in the province, and that's allowed us in 2021 to hit the ground running without having to spend a whole year, or part of a year getting a bunch of infrastructure and people and processes in place. Ground Truth was already there. Sean and company had already been there for a number of years, and that really allowed us to execute a pretty aggressive, pretty large-scale exploration program in 2021, and we're following up and doing the same again in 2022.
I've known Sean and Kathy probably 20 years, and I've seen Sean's presentation on what makes Newfoundland and Labrador special. He did a presentation here at PDAC a couple of days ago. He's so far ahead of everybody else in understanding what's going on the ground there. I saw it last year. I was impressed, but this year he's just figuring out stuff and he thinks differently. So I give kudos on you for working with him. He really is ahead of the pack.
Well, he's a creative guy, and he likes to think big, and he's been at it for quite a while in Newfoundland, right? I'll probably get the timing wrong, but somewhere around 2015 or 16, not 2021 when there was a staking rush going on the island. He was out there researching and figuring out what was going on, what had been done there historically, why some of the majors that had done so much work in the province over the years, in the 80s and even before that time, had abandoned the work that they'd done. And he really put together a compelling story as to why all of that and how all of that had happened, and what the opportunity is that the island presents moving forward with the structural story that he put together and composed and has educated an awful lot of people on now several years later.
I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago. I think it's coming out pretty soon with Rich Goldberg. He's one of the leading orogenic gold experts in the world. If you listen to Sean and then you listen to Rich, Rich thinks Newfoundland is the perfect storm for economic discoveries, and that was his big thing. There's lots of gold out there, but finding gold in a setting that you build mines, he thinks it's one of the best two places in the world.
Well, Newfoundland is really a wonder for a bunch of reasons, but one of them in the mining industry is the access and the infrastructure that exists in that province. Even, it's an island, so there's a certain perception of remoteness, but it's not really that at all. There are highways and hydro generation plants and transmission lines, and a system of logging roads and recreational roads that crisscross the province that really provide much more secure, much more easy, ready access than you'll find in any number of other jurisdictions. Obviously, the Atlantic Canadians love their politics as much as anybody, but it's a much more stable and safe environment than a lot of other jurisdictions around the world where you might go looking for gold, right, without naming any of them. And so it's got a population that wants development, that needs economic development, that has both a direct local history of mining and also a very highly skilled workforce that for my whole lifetime, for the last several decades, has been largely exported to the rest of the country, whether that's northern Ontario or Manitoba or Saskatchewan or up in Wood Buffalo, Fort McMurray country. So I think lots of those people who and you can see the growth in the communities in Deer Lake and Gander around the airports in those communities is largely to do with that export of talent to the rest of the country. So you got people, you got the political system, you have a really effective geological survey and mines department within the provincial government, which is not the case in all 13 jurisdictions across Canada. Bless their hearts.
Agreed.
And you just have combine that with the geology, and as Sean describes it, this crumple zone, this crash zone of structure that was flushed with, a series of mineralizing events 420 million years ago, and you really do have a perfect storm that's prime for discoveries there. Gold and probably other elements too. There's lots of base metal potential, probably some lithium potential. Certainly know there's an impressive salt discovery that's under development on the western side of the island. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's not just a gold rush that's happening in Newfoundland, although that's our primary focus. There's really a resource boom that's burgeoning there. Hopefully, the oil and gas industry in Newfoundland gets to stay a part of that.
Were you at the reception the other night? Premier
I wasn't. No.
I was so impressed. He was incredibly clear. There was no wiggle words at all. While he is there will be certainty.
Right.
And I'm not sure which I'm more excited about, having a message about certainty. He also gave a message about wanting us to prosper, wanting us to make discoveries, wanting us to create jobs. But when you combine that with, and I've heard this from Sean several times, that the strength of the geological survey and the access to data has really set the stage for a gold district that nobody ever expected to see.
It's impressive that through a lot of years that were really a dearth of development on the island, they somehow managed to keep that department funded and functioning. Which again hasn't been the case across some of the other jurisdictions in Canada, and they really have. They've set up a great system, all online, that gives us access to information, and really formed the basis in large part for the online map staking that was done and the properties we evaluated and the ground we ended up acquiring because of what we were able to find out about them and research about them from the historic data, whether generated by government sources or historic private work that was made available online, and we were able to compile it. yeah, it's been impressive, and it's been a real breath of fresh air after working in a few other places across the country.
I think a few other places across the country should be paying attention to what they're doing in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's going to start separating them from the pack very quickly, and the very progressive government, yet responsible geological survey. But I lived in a small mining town in Yukon called Faro. 2/3 of the population was from Newfoundland.
Right.
And before they were in Faro, they were in Pine Point.
Right.
So they had traveled around. The most amazing people, hardworking, family-oriented. All they wanted was to go home.
Right.
So this, to me, is perfect. You've got a labor force that has all that experience, and they want it at home.
Right.
And you feel that, I think. And,
well, I can empathize as a displaced maritimer. I can empathize with that pull home. Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Atlantic Canada?
Well, I guess I didn't know any different at the time. It was, fairly idyllic. We lived in the country outside of a small city, right? I think the population of Bathurst at the time would have been 15 or 16,000. It wouldn't be quite that large these days. And it was great. I played a lot of sports, and it was not a company town. It was not an Noranda company town, but it did sure feel like it at times because of the significance of the local, the Brunswick number 12 zinc mine, to the local economy, and sort of how many people worked there and how much of the local economy was owing to what was going on at the mine and concentrator and the lead smelter up the road in Baldoon. So, the mining was everywhere. It was in the parades during the summer. It was in the fun runs around town in the summer. It was at every holiday celebration, and it was on the phone at night every dinner time when my father would get the daily hoist report call to know what the hoist was that day. So it's in the blood and has been for a long time.
What I liked about living in a mining town, and I didn't fully appreciate it until many years later, 100% employment.
Right. Yeah.
There's jobs, and they wanted families and people. It wasn't transient. It was solid, and people spent their weekends camping and fishing, and the money circulated, right?
Yeah, people in Toronto probably wouldn't appreciate it, but actually, the highest disposable income levels across the country historically have been in some smaller towns with resource-based economies, right? So,
I was there in the 80s. And an electrician that I knew was making $60 an hour in the 80s.
Right.
So the demand for the trades, the wealth, the opportunities. I've always been a big supporter. Mining is it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Canada has always been a resource-based, net exporting economy, and anybody who kids themselves and thinks it's anything other than that is really lost the plot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that means a significant portion of Canada's parliament at the moment, but hopefully that'll turn around at some point.
Well, I think people are so disconnected from where stuff comes from, whether it's their food or their power or the metal in their cell phone or their car, but these rural communities drive the luxuries of the cities. And I
well, not just the luxuries, but the very fundamental infrastructure and underpinning of it all. The old prospector saying is, if it can't be grown, it must be mined, and that is absolutely true. Anybody who wants to complain about resource development or complain about scarring the landscape really should do a better job trying to educate themselves as to how small the footprint is with modern technology that's being used to minimize the footprint and how intrusive exploration and mining activity is, and then how effective reclamation processes are. I mean, you go to most mines, in particular underground mines, but just about any modern mine site that has been reclaimed, it's hard to tell there was anything there. And that's where the materials come from for the generation and transmission of electricity, the construction of roads and buildings and bridges and electric cars and batteries and windmills and
It's not coming from the plug in the wall.
and iPhones. Yeah, well, from a plug in the wall, sure. The plug and the plug and the wall and the wires were all mined, right? So, everybody who's watching this podcast will know that, but maybe if we all go out and educate our own little streets and neighborhoods and cul-de-sacs, maybe we'll get the word out.
Yeah, I think that mining is the best industry to create wealth in addition to all the benefits from mining, but the best industry to create wealth in rural communities.
Well, yes, it literally is
tourism is just not going to cut.
Well, it's the original generation of wealth, right? We take nothing and make it into something, which then folks on Bay Street move around from place to place and do their thing with. But it all has to come from somewhere originally. Nobody's paying any taxes. Nobody's redistributing any wealth. Nobody's running a stock market without somebody taking something out of the ground at some point and turning it into something of value.
And we could go sideways on this, but
maybe we've lost the plot now.
Maybe, I don't know. But in a first world country, the standards for responsible environmental management are so high that it's the best place to do mining.
Sure.
If you really care about the global conditions.
Yep. Yeah, labor and environmental standards both, in Canada are as good as you'll find anywhere, and we should be leaders in the mining of gold and battery metals, copper and nickel and cobalt and lithium and salts and gypsum and everything else that gets some of the more exotic stuff that gets mined in smaller quantities all across the country. We should be global leaders in that.
And I think Labrador has such a strong history in so much of that. I see, at times we just talk about Newfoundland, but huge history with mining in both parts of the jurisdiction. So I want to talk a bit about Gander Gold now.
Yep.
So what kind of stuff did you guys do last year in the field?
So we started with about a 20,000 soil and till sample program, which was, I think, probably the largest one undertaken in the history of the island by a single company in a single season. So that was pretty aggressive, and that was across all 8 properties of ours. In some cases, on some of the smaller properties, we met the annual assessment requirements, and in other cases where there was maybe a bit more known about the property and the structure and the historic works, where there was some that had been done on those properties, we focused in and did a little more, and pretty exciting early results. We've identified on the Gander North property, for example, some 40 linear kilometers of structure that's overlain with anomalous gold and in some cases copper results from the soils and the tills. We at the Mount Peyton property, we know we have a fold nose in the structure in the southwest corner of the property that has some 22 linear kilometers of structure that's overlain by anomalous gold and in some cases copper. And that is the story that is developing across a number of the other properties that we have, including the BLT and Cape Ray, and so we're very happy with the ground we picked up. We're happy with the results of the 20 or 21,000 soil samples that we did in 2021, and the airborne MAG VLF surveys that we flew across all 2,263 square kilometers of that ground, which helped us get better resolution on the structural story. So, couldn't be happier really with the results from the first year. And so, in 2022 now we're going back and the ground truth team is already on the ground there, have been since May 2022, following up, extending some of those soil grids where anomalies were identified and tightening up the spacing on the lines that were run across others that were identified. So we're really going back and doing some first pass work in some areas because it is a lot of ground to cover, and really starting to polish up what will become the first round of drill targets in our second season there on the island.
Excellent. And one of the things that everybody always asks, and it drives me crazy because...
Let me guess.
Yeah, when are you going to drill?
Right. Yes. No, I know. Yeah, well, you have to do the work first, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the people doing the work are more anxious than anybody
Yeah.
to stick a bit in the ground and see what's there. And it's incumbent upon us to spend our investors' money wisely. So you want to do the homework, do the work, and not just be spinning the rod, but make sure it's you've given it the best chance possible of hitting something. So we'll be working throughout 2022 to develop the first set of drill targets. We will, in all likelihood, probably do some RAB drilling rather than diamond drilling right off the hop. So rotary air blast drilling will allow us to, with a smaller machine, a smaller footprint, less water usage, a little easier time of permitting, less precision probably required in the identification of where the holes will be for permitting. Get out there and start testing, start sampling 5-foot sections at a time and get the assay results back from that. Get a televiewer down the hole to see what the structure looks like that we've targeted, where we hit it. And then that will be followed up with diamond drilling later on. So, yeah, we're working on developing the first set of drill targets this year, and got to do the homework first.
Yeah, people, and they keep saying it, it's true, the market only cares about drilling.
Yeah.
But it's so important. If you look at companies like RAB Gold, where they are now, companies like yourself are a couple of years behind that. But if they hadn't gone through the exact same process, they wouldn't have the targets they have now.
Well, the biggest recent success story on the island is Newfoundland Gold, of course, and they look like an overnight success since they listed, and went from $1.50 to $13 a share, and have undertaken a 400,000 meter drill program, which has to be the largest anywhere in the country. But they had the benefit also of operating for 5 or 6 years, Dennis and Company, as a private company in the background with no attention or fanfare being paid outside of their small circle of investors, and did all the work that we're doing now in the public eye as a private company. So when you look at their technical report on their Queensway project, for example, the soil results that Gander is generating from Gander North in particular, which is only a matter of 15 kilometers away from the Keats Zone, the background and the anomalous levels and the kind of headline numbers that we're seeing for gold and soils are pretty much analogous to what you see in I forget whether it was 2018 or 2020, but the technical report on the Queensway project that NFG wrote. So we're encouraged by that, and we're seeing a lot of the same geochemistry markers on the ground there that they were seeing back in 2015 and 16 before they launched, before they went public in 2021 and became an overnight quote unquote success, right? Of course, that overnight success had many years
the kind of work you're doing now.
The kind of work we're doing now.
And I'm a big supporter of RAB and RC before you get to diamond drilling, because it's a really cost-effective way to test the target before you're going to spend a lot of money on a diamond rig.
Yeah, and the soils. The soils, we got pretty good turnaround from the lab on the soils last year, unlike rock samples, really, that right across the country ground to a halt, right? The labs were just bound up with volume, but the soils we were able to get through and get pretty good turnaround on, and the hope is that we can get something similar in terms of turnaround for the powders that come out of a RAB drill and actually go to the lab, where it's already essentially pulverized.
And am I mistaken in thinking that they put an additional lab on the island this year?
Well, I think Eastern Analytics expanded somewhat, and I know some of the other assay providers were looking at establishing a footprint on the island. I don't actually know if they've done that.
I've got a lot of questions about where you're going. Where maybe just keep it simple. Where do you see Gander Gold going over the next 5 years?
Sure. So Gander has a lot of ground, and the early returns are very good. At some point, the carrying cost of all that ground will become an issue. And so part of the exercise now that we're into year 2 of assessment and through year 2 and in through year 3 we'll be really identifying that ground which we want to move ahead with the development of, and that which we want to option off or sell or drop or otherwise do something different with to move forward. So that's sort of in the corporate development scheme of things, what will happen over the next couple of years. We expect there's some deal making to be done to parcel out parts of the ground while we keep marching forward with the best bits that we want to hang on to. In terms of exploration, like I said before, we'll be developing the first set of drill targets this year. We'll be into diamond drilling those and continuing to do early stage work on some other parts of the various properties in 2023. But we'll be into drilling in 2023, and the treasury right now is in good shape for 2022. The launching of a significant drill program for 23 will require some treatment on that side of things. And then on the promotion side of things, really since Gander listed in early March of 2022, we really haven't done any promotion yet. We were waiting to get back. We're still waiting for some of our geophysical final data from last year. We have all of our geochem results from last year now, and so there's an abundance of data that's being collected. The preliminary interpretations are being done on that, and we expect a pretty robust news flow through the summer of 2022, some of which, unfortunately, we'll be talking about the work that was done a year past. But the promotion will kick in, and that will come along. We expect the share price will react accordingly, subject, of course, to global events.
It's a terrible market right now for gold. And the price of gold is doing so well. But it's a shame that $1,850 gold is perceived now. Like, nobody would have believed that 5 years ago, but $1,850 gold is perceived to be a low gold price. I mean that's crazy, right? That the fundamentals are good for lots of projects out there at the moment, and in particular the ones with the high grade early stage results that Gander has. And they always say that management is key to making your investment decision. But I think it's changing dramatically to jurisdiction is on par with management. If you're not in the right place, where the permits don't flow as easily as they should, where there's not a supportive environment. So I think obviously a strong management, great jurisdiction. So basically the game plan is you spend a couple of seasons narrowing down the best targets, and then you start to trim in order to conserve the treasury.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
So how's PDAC going for you?
PDAC's good. Traffic looks pretty strong after people have been pent up inside for a while. The footprint, I don't think, is quite what it used to be, but that saves time traveling back and forth between the north and south sides of the convention center. So it's been good. It's good to see a lot of old familiar faces that, like you said a while ago, we've only seen on a computer screen for the last couple of years. So it's good to be out of the house, right?
Yeah. And, I think it's a good first year. There's been a healthy turnout. I've really enjoyed meeting the prospectors.
Yeah.
That people that are, lifetime on the ground, and getting to spend some time with them and meeting people from the Geological Survey. That was really my expectation, was that would be the highlight of PDAC for me. And but it's great seeing what everyone's doing and personalizing it a lot, right?
Yeah. It'd be nice if we could get at one of these shows, get all the Newfoundland companies into one aisle, but I'm not sure what sort of coordination would be required for that. But most of the member organizations of Newfoundland Gold are here in one form or another, but we're spread out all over this huge trade show floor. It'd be nice if we could get us somehow into one aisle for next year. Maybe when things are back to normal, back on the March schedule for PDAC, maybe we can pull that together next year.
Well, I'm doing a podcast with Jeff from Exploits Gold, and he's on the board of PDAC. So
well, there you go.
So
there's
make
your
the
in.
pitch.
Yeah, very good.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Mark.
Likewise, Jenny.
I don't know if we've covered everything about your program and anything else you wanted to add.
So that's it, Gander, GAND on the CSE since I think it was the 8th of March this year. And the share price right now, it's a good buy right now before we ramp up the news flow and the promo that will come and the development of drill targets later on in the year. So we're really happy with the ground we've picked up. We like our team. It's got lots of experience and a history of bringing discoveries into production and managing large operations, as well as managing junior exploration companies successfully from a financial standpoint. So we like our properties, we like our team, and we like the early stage results. You can't ask for more than that after 1 year of existence and 3 or 4 months as a public company.
And your background is exceptional for the sector that you're in, bringing that understanding of where you want to be.
Right.
When you're a junior, the goal of getting to that stage, whether it's you or not, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I would like nothing better than to find and build and operate a mine. So hopefully that's in the cards for us.
Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. Appreciate
really
it.
Enjoyed it today. Best of luck in 2022. And thanks to everybody for joining us, and wishing you a great season. And thanks again. We'll be back.